Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live. I am Carrie Conover. Thank you all so much for joining me. Just want to remind you that I will be in the chat answering questions as we go, and I want to hear from all of you. So let's make this as interactive as possible. Today, the reason I'm going live is I want to talk about the point when you actually get that job interview at an EdTech or education company and how to really prep for those job interviews. So when you walk into an EdTech or an education company job interview, the best way to stand out, isn't that you are memorizing perfect answers. It's that you are anticipating and having a bank of real world experiences and stories that connect to the job description. So when you're in an interview and you haven't done this prep work and you're put on the spot with behavioral interview questions where they're looking for examples, I know often it's really easy just to go blank on everything you've ever done in your career. So if you have a bank that you build of, examples and how they were effective, and using the STAR method to answer some of these questions, you will see that your job interviews will go much better. So today we're going to talk about going from the job post to interview prep. So when you are thinking about interview prep, one of the things you want to think about is really diving deep into the job description, knowing not only what the roles and responsibility is all about, but what type of questions they might be asking you. I am Carrie Conover, by the way, if we haven't met. I'm really passionate about the people working in the ed tech industry. I'm a mom, a wife, an ed tech enthusiast who's been in the industry for 26 years. I started my career as a teacher, and then I worked at eSpark Learning and Discovery Education. I founded Educators to Educators and now EdTech School. And I am currently writing an ultimate guide to working in EdTech that is coming in January of 2026. So if you're interested in getting your hands on a copy of that, you're going to go to edtechschool.org and sign up for the pre-order list. So if you've never heard of the STAR method, the STAR method is a way of answering behavioral interview questions. So you get asked a question and then you go through the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So the situation is what was going on at the time, obviously relevant to the question you've been asked. The task is what was your responsibility. The action is what did you do? And the result is what was the outcome. Now, in general, I like you to keep your answers somewhat brief and organized and let the person ask follow-up questions. You don't want to be a person who rambles on and on. So it is a tricky thing here. You don't want to be abrupt, but you want to answer in a thoughtful, orderly way and pause and allow for follow-up questions. So when you are thinking about job descriptions, you are thinking about interview triggers. So this is after you've gotten the job. You're going to dive in specifically into the responsibilities section of the post to see what type of questions they might ask you in a job interview. So for me, as I look at this job description, I am seeing that the first couple of things under the responsibilities are pretty much straightforward, right? Provide high quality coaching, support and professional development, collaborate with success leaders. So like in your current job, you probably, if you've got an interview, have done some of this coaching and professional learning. You have collaborated with others and you have delivered professional services. Where the clues for me really start coming in is at those two yellow arrows that you're seeing, where they're saying engage in life cycles and gather, monitor, and record. That's where you're starting to get really deep into what I like to call interview triggers, what they might ask you about and what they value in this role at Great Minds. Don't forget to keep commenting in the chat. I want to see all of you. If I don't get to follow up during this time, I will follow up after. So please ask your questions. I did get a few questions in the live yesterday that I will answer at the end. So make sure you stay all the way to the end. So let's talk about a behavioral interview question that might get asked based on these bullet points. So one of them says, one of the bullet points says, provide high quality on-site support, coaching, and PD to assigned schools. So a question that a person might ask you in an interview for this job is, tell me about a time you provided on-site coaching or professional development that led to measurable teacher or student outcomes. What approach did you use? So I'm going to pause here for a second and let you read through this on your own and see how I maybe pulled that question from this bullet point. I'm checking in on those lives, so keep asking me those questions. Okay, now let's move on and go a little bit deeper into how we might answer something like this. So tell me about a time you provided on-site coaching or professional development that led to measurable student or teacher or student outcomes. What approach did you use? Now, this question is prompting you a bit, but you could just be asked, tell me about a time you provided professional development. Oh, one time I provided professional development for math teachers after school and it went really well and the teachers were happy. No. You want to go deeper by using the STAR method. So you might start off by saying, when I was teaching at Jefferson Elementary, student math score behind district averages, and teachers felt uncertain about how to use formative assessment to drive instruction. So there's my situation. So as the instructional coach, I was responsible for supporting teachers in implementing new formative assessment strategies to improve instruction and to ultimately, improve student math achievement. So that's what the task was. Now I'm going to move on to the action. So I then facilitated weekly after-school professional development sessions focused on formative assessment, best practices, and then provided in-class coaching. I was allowed to do some in-class coaching for 5 targeted teachers. During these coaching cycles, I modeled formative assessment techniques, co-taught several lessons, observed instruction, and held debrief sessions with those teachers, and then helped them to analyze student work and adjust lesson plans. And then I also helped teachers set short-term goals and how to track progress towards those goals. And ultimately, by the end of the semester, all 5 of those teachers had, now I'm moving on to the result, by the way, ultimately, all 5 of those teachers had implemented formative assessment strategies in their classrooms, and their benchmark math scores improved, and they increased by an average of 15%. And the teachers also reported greater confidence in using data to inform instructions. And then it was hugely successful because we were able to expand this school-wide the next year. So you can see how, the situation, low student math scores, uncertainty about assessment use. The task was they needed to use implement formal assessment in classrooms as a coach. The action was that they led PD, modeled teaching, observed, coached, analyzed data, set goals, and the result was a 15% math gain. This is a way better, way more informative answer. You sound legit if you answer the question like this. So, I was reading what I had written down there. You're not going to be able to read in a job interview, but you are able to keep a bank of these and practice talking about these situations by thinking in your head, situation, task, action, result. Let's move on to another example. So In the bullet points, I went through each of those bullet points and came up with a behavioral interview question that you might get asked in an interview. This is a key part to going into an interview, is going to those responsibilities, and at each bullet point, try to think of one or two questions they might ask you. So the first bullet point says collaborate with success leads to, I'm sorry, this is the next bullet point. Collaborate with success leads to deliver high contextualized services. And a question they could ask you is, describe how you teamed up with instructional leaders or colleagues to tailor your coaching to a specific school's needs. What strategies did you use? So here is, they want to know that you know how to contextualize and differentiate professional learning and modeling. I'm going to pause here, make sure you are keeping up in the comments and talking to me so I can respond to you and interact with the audience. Again, if I don't get to it while I'm presenting here, I'll definitely respond to you after. Please say hello and tell me what you want me to talk about next in my next live. With just giving some examples of how you could brainstorm some of those behavioral interview questions. And so I put up on the screen the bullet points, the first four, and a question that could apply to that, and then how you would use that STAR method to answer it. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to look at that while I answer your questions in the chat. So a lot of these, you'll see it's share an experience, give an example, describe a time, tell me about. When they're asking you these questions, they want details. They want you to go deeper. And what the STAR method does is to, one, show that you know how to communicate and effectively and concisely, that you know how to talk about results, and that you make sure you don't ramble on and on. I can't tell you how much this helps you if you have a bank of answers to these questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. You can read as I am going, talking about this. But even if you go and prep, maybe you didn't even get an interview for this. Okay, let's say you didn't even get an interview, but you're really interested in this job. You can start a bank of these types of questions in the notes app of your phone or a Google Doc or whatever you use to stay organized. And you can keep answers to these questions. It's going to make you a better interviewer. And I would practice reading them out loud without looking at your notes, practice talking about these things. So this really is a great way to prep for interviews, but it's also a great way while you're sitting and waiting for that interview to come to you, is to, get in and start answering these questions for yourself so you are ready when that call or email comes. I'm super excited that you were here today. If you want to learn more about EdTech School, you can go over to edtechschool.org. Make sure you're following me on LinkedIn. I love to hear from all of you. So thank you. I see there's, former students from Classroom to Boardroom in here today. So thank you for popping on by. I'm going to continue to do these lives, share out jobs. Make sure you're following me on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all those good things. And most importantly, go get on the wait list for the ultimate guide to working in EdTech. I'm so excited. I am literally knees deep in writing it right now. Thank you for being here.